Hey, weirdo. Welcome to the Weird Canadian. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever sat in a meeting somewhere where somebody said, "We need to use AI for this," and you nodded along, even though you had absolutely no idea what they actually meant? Or maybe you're a small business owner who keeps hearing that AI is going to revolutionize your industry. But every time you research it, you hit a wall of jargon, math equations, and people telling you to just learn Python. You're not alone. And here's the thing, it's not your fault. The way we talk about AI is broken. Engineers and executives are speaking two different languages, and everybody in between is left guessing. Today's guest is here to fix that. Has spent 15 years building cutting edge AI systems, but he's also an author and educator who believes that understanding AI shouldn't require a computer science degree. His new book, An AI for the Rest of Us, is designed to bridge that gap. This is going to be a conversation about AI, what AI actually is, how you can use it without being a coder, and why human AI cooperation is the real future. Thank you for coming on the show, Sairam. I appreciate you showing up. I'd like to get a little bit into the creative side of things to start us off. In our pre-talk, we had discussed that you use AI for your creative work.
Yeah.
In a newsletter, creating visuals, even market research. Can you walk us through how you use AI as a creative co-pilot, not just an engineer?
Sure. So thanks for having me on. So to begin with, in terms of how I use AI as a on the creative side, there's different facets. Like you said, there's the whole market research and preparation side of things, where if you want to understand what's involved in a topic before writing about it or creating, content about it, it's very easy now to use AI to do some research on the latest articles, the latest videos, and gather all that information in one place. And then have another tool, say, for example, like Notebook LM or even your favorite chat GPT, to synthesize that information and give you the TLDR, because then that gives you like a bird's eye view of what's going on. So that's like one facet of it. The other side is in terms of ideation. So usually as a creator, each of us have our unique identity. We want to put our own spin on things. And that's where this ideation phase is quite helpful. So you can say, okay, here's a whole bunch of my posts from the past. Here's the topics I write about. This is my style of writing. This is how, these are the values I believe in, and so on and so on. And then after that, you ask, the AI to give you like ideas of how to approach a topic. So don't ask it to write the post for you. I mean, you can if you want to, but then again, it's going to be cookie cutter and everybody else is going to be doing that. But instead, ask, how can I approach this from an angle that sort of represents me as a creator? So that's a second idea. And then, of course, there's whole brainstorming of the topics itself, right? You can say, okay, what are the most interesting topics I could possibly talk about? And then you can have a back and forth and then figure out where you find energy and excitement, and then do this ideation step after that. And then the third facet is the visual side of things. Personally, I try to limit the number of images that I create with AI, because I love doodling myself, and if where and when possible, I try to doodle the images myself. But just creating an image that represents the post, or even brainstorming like, okay, how can I represent this as a visual, and then just getting ideas and then being able to draw that out. All of those are just like, scratching the surface of what's possible.
I do love it for a few different things. Like my favorite part of the tool is the data aggregation, like the
Mm.
ability to research. So much time saved.
Is it
But I just recently got into a new creative. I started making music this morning, so
nice?
I've been enamored by these tools to really get my message across. And I like that it's coming down to the regular person, because it's easier for the regular person to now understand how to use these tools.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a fascinating concept of putting yourself through an AI exam.
Mhm.
So poking your holes through your own understanding of each topic.
Mhm.
Can you? How could a small business owner or nonprofit leader test this idea, or use an AI exam to really finesse their business strategy or anything they're looking into?
So, for starters, you can, again, I will say, be very careful about the information you share with these models, because you don't want to share something that's proprietary, that's your IP, and that's your competitive advantage, unless you have an enterprise license. And even then, these models may be trained on the data that you share with them, and therefore it's important to make sure that you aren't sharing something that's either customer data or even your secret sauce. That being said, you can share how you've approached problems and how your strategy is, and then basically say, now I want you to be the devil's advocate, start poking holes in what's wrong with this strategy. And it's interesting because, first of all, most of these models are trained to be diplomatic. They'll be like, oh, you've covered all the bases, this is brilliant, you're like a genius and whatnot. But then when you go a little bit deeper and you say, I want you to be honest, and I don't want you to sugarcoat things, please give me the honest feedback on this and poke some holes. I'm trying to make it ironclad, or just see what works for you. You'll find that the questions start to come. And then some of the questions might make sense. They might be angles you haven't considered before. And then you can go down, you can either note them down to revisit later and then continue this interrogation or exam, or you could go down the rabbit hole and have conversations, right? And now I think like ChatGPT has this feature called branch or something, where you can, at a particular point in the chat, you can actually branch off into a rabbit hole and then you can come back always. So I think just the choice is yours, really. So that is an easy way to do that. The second thing is, like, once you have, like, if you are trying to understand a topic so that you can apply it to your business, if you want to use it as a learning companion, you can ask it to, like, you can give it the materials you use to learn, and then ask it to ask you questions, and then that will test your understanding. And then you can say, okay, let's skip all the surface level questions, ask me things that that I would need to know from an application perspective. And then from there on, you get like questions that might probe your understanding a bit more, and then it's a back and forth pursuit after that. So those are just two quick tips that hopefully help.
The one thing I want to emphasize out of that is it sounds very human. You're sitting down and you're trying to go through your discussion with somebody and just trying to figure out where you're wrong. It seems like the LLMs are more human than we are nowadays.
That's the illusion, isn't it? I mean, they're really, really sophisticated pattern matching algorithms, and it's easy to forget that, especially when the responses feel like you're conversing with another person.
That's I do, because I'm on the software engineering side. I this is where I think regular users don't really understand is I vet my data. If it comes out of one LLM, I'm running it through every other LLM to make sure it's right.
Nice.
Because we're not at the stage of
no hallucinations, right? Because like these models make things up, and people might complain, why do they make things up? The important point is it's actually a feature, not a bug. That's what makes these things creative, because they can select, they have sort of in simple terms, they have a randomization built in that allows them to change things around, and that very randomization is extremely useful in certain use cases and extremely annoying in others. So it's good that you're doing the fact checking. So trust but verify.
Yeah, trust but verify has always been my rule, and until I can so I actually wrote a paper about we have I see the chat interface is too 2D. We need like a 3D representation to be able to actually understand where that data is coming from. I'm hoping we can expand out to something like that in the future. And I lost where I was going with
that. You were saying that you were writing a paper, so...
Oh, yes. So I was writing a paper just kind of explaining that we need this... I want to be able to diagnose where the information is coming from, what it's doing, but I also want to get to the point where I can have my own personal server, where I can modify the things, I can ensure that it's accurate to my tone, those kinds of things. I don't think we're that far off. A random question. Do you have a feeling for how far we are off that model?
I feel we're not far off, but at the same time, it's with these things, it's very hard to say, because oftentimes when you think you've fixed one problem, another one shows up. It's almost like, that whack-a-mole where you've plugged a hole and then it shows up through the other hole. So it's hard to say. But in terms of determinism, right, there's always these things you can do. If, like, for example, if you come from a software background, you'll understand that there are things like fixing the random seed, or like setting the top P in temperature and all of those things to the right values. And then all of a sudden you get like these boring textbook answers. But then even beyond that, there's a problem, because anything that's contained in what the LLM has seen as part of its training, it can give you hopefully accurate answers. But anything that's outside, for example, you can take a model that was, say, trained before the pandemic, it would have absolutely no idea what curbside pickup is, right? So if you asked it about like the like how the businesses should like hypothetically adapt to curbside service, it would give you nonsense, absolute nonsense. So, and doesn't matter if your top P and everything else is set properly, you're still going to run into trouble there. So lots of things to look out for.
Very fair. I'm very looking forward to the future either way. So let's get into your book a little bit, the AI for the Rest of Us. You describe it as a translation manual for both engineers and executives. You mentioned the classic frustration from engineers they hear when they hear, but it's AI, it's supposed to work. I know this as well as everybody else, but can you explain where that communication gap, why that communication gap is so common, and how your book explains that gap?
Sure. So as an engineer myself and now managing a team of engineers, I understand the frustration that comes when you get initiatives from leadership asking you to implement something using AI and then expect like maybe say unreasonable gains in output like productivity, or even if it's part of a project expecting unreasonable ROI. Now the simple thing is they are thinking about it from the lens, like if you look at the business leaders, they're looking at it from the lens of what are our competitors doing, how is the stock market reacting, what are our investors saying, and there's a whole bunch of other things that they are pressurized on, and they are whip smart in making decisions that steer companies, and I want to give them the credit for that. However, AI by itself is very random and probabilistic, right? It's not like traditional software where you can say, give me a team of X engineers for Y duration and I will deliver this feature for you. In AI, you could possibly develop a feature in the same timeline with those X engineers. However, there's no guarantee that it solves your problem to the level you expected, or it opens up another can of worms that need more fixing. Or in the even the best case scenario, let's say it works spectacularly well, all of a sudden there's an increased demand for this, and then you suddenly have to scale this up to a lot of users, and then when you scale things, that's when things start to break. And then so it's such a challenging type of paradigm to deal with. So for the business leaders, this is very hard to understand. So if you think about a CFO, for example, you have to go to them and say, I need, I don't know, $10 million to prove that this idea works. And then if you just think about that for a second, it's not like I need $10 million to implement this idea and get it to market. No, to prove this idea works. And then if it works, I'll need another 50 million to actually implement it. And then we'll see, fingers crossed, we're at where we want to be. So this entire mental model that they have of tech is now shifted. So that's where they have. And then if the engineers are going to tell them like, the F1 score for this model is this, and we need to tune the PR curve so that it hits this level of precision, they've already zoned out. One, they don't have the time, and two, they have no idea what you're talking about, and so they can't empathize with you even if what you're saying is like something that's mission critical, right? And of course, I gave a very toy example there. In reality, it's like much more nuanced. On the engineering side, when they come to you and say, I need this implemented in 3 months, and our customers, we've already promised our customers, there's this innate frustration that comes in, is like, why didn't you speak with us first? Because we need to see if it's technically feasible. If it is technically feasible, we need to see how many people are needed, what's the data that we'll need to implement it, how long is the data going to take for us to have ready and processed. And then on top of that, we have no idea how the entire training, validation, all of that happens, and we can't commit to a timeline. But unfortunately, it's already been committed, and you didn't speak to us, and then you are asking us for an explanation of why it won't work. And when we try to tell you, it's like going over your head. So there's this disconnect in language and expectations. And so where the book comes in is, usually with AI books, you have two camps. You have the software engineering variety, which is all these algorithms explained in code, which is fantastic for software engineers and people who know how to code. That helps them instantly both play with and understand these algorithms. On the other side, you have the more academic, mathematically rigorous variety, which is explaining things to you in equations. And if you think about business leaders, usually they fall somewhere in the middle. Like they may have been in another life from academia, they may have been from an engineering background, but it's been many years since they've actually hands-on written code and they don't have the time. Or they may not come from an engineering background at all, in which case all bets are off. Now, that's where I wanted to plug that gap, because I've experienced this on the engineering side and now I'm seeing it happen on the business side. So I felt like, okay, let me write something in plain English that explains these algorithms without dumbing the idea down. Because the thing that I feel I shouldn't do, especially when I was writing the book, is I shouldn't assume that my readers are dumb. I should actually write in a way that assumes that they are intelligent, and but at the same time write it in plain English without having to resort to equations or code. And that's what I've tried to do. So hopefully the
That's
book's a translation of this
I,
disconnect.
I'm hearing rounding applause from engineers everywhere that have experienced the same problem. I just think back to my coding days and just being like, why are we doing this? Or even trying to explain, like, it's not possible. It was very hard.
Yeah, it still is, by the way.
Yes, I can imagine that. So, can we get into a little bit more detail? What's the single most important non technical concept that somebody needs to grasp right now?
That AI is, we're writing the user manual for AI as we go. So it's important for you to spend time playing with whichever tool. You don't need to, as an executive, I'm not asking you to fine tune a language model or anything like that. However, just spend time with the tool and like 30 minutes a day and try to solve your own problems with it and then build that understanding. So and the reason I say that's non-technical is because you are trying to make it an active part of your workflow. Because I hear all of these companies saying we have to be AI first. And honestly, I have no idea what that means. Like, what is AI first? Right. And like there's like KPIs being defined where your usage of AI dictates, is a part of your performance review. Like, okay, how are you going to measure that? All of those things come in. So the best way you can be AI first is actually use it and understand where it works, where it fails, and then sort of iteratively become better at solving problems. Maybe first you take a very tiny problem and then slowly that you add a little bit more and then a little bit more. Eventually you have got back a whole lot of time because you have completely automated certain workflows that you trust, that you have verified. And then after that, you have all this time to think strategically on the business. If you're a business owner, if you're an executive, on the roadmap and strategy. And as an engineer, the same thing applies. I mean, AI generated code is actually going to be, it's like I've seen so many memes and I love all of those memes where they talk about how it wrote the code in 5 minutes and then none of it worked, but it was beautiful. Uh, but basically, just learning how to adapt to this AI assisted coding paradigm as an engineer is very useful, because you can learn new languages and frameworks by watching this model work and actually probing it on its output. And that's something that we never had before, right? You would usually pair program with a senior engineer or an engineer who's on another team to understand a different part of the stack. And now you have someone who's 24/7 available, 365 days a year, doesn't lose patience, doesn't yell at you, and makes mistakes, yes, but is it's an incredible opportunity. So non-technically, I would say just start using AI.
To throw out some feedback there, or at least a little bit of idea, anybody can plug in their email now and just say filter out the actual spam. Like that's the simplest thing I could think of that actually works. And to the executives using tokens for KPIs, that's just wrong because first off, what model? How's the usage? How is the like? There's so many.
Oh no, what I meant to say is they're using like how much of AI are you incorporating in your day to day as a KPI. But that's a
Okay.
trickier thing, because depending on your job, you like if your job is 90% speaking with humans, the where is the opportunity to use AI beyond preparing for a meeting where you're going to maybe speak with a customer, potential client? So there has to be more nuance. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. Oh, I like that we're getting back to the conversation of everything is nuanced. And so much better than black and white. So I want to get into a little bit. You spent 15 years in San Diego, and you admire the American culture of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Drawing on that experience, what's one piece of advice you give a small business owner in the U.S. who wants to start leveraging AI but doesn't know where to begin? Actually, you just answer that. Dang you, AI not giving me the right results. So I'm going to throw this away and just kind of ask open-ended questions.
Sure.
Where do you believe AI will be most successful?
So, as things stand, most of the AI applications are based on this section of AI called artificial narrow intelligence, which means that it's particularly good at solving a specific problem. So the more specific you are, the like I mean, it almost feels like I'm advising a creative in some respects, right? Like niche down, and the riches are in the niches, right? It's kind of, it feels like that way with AI too, because like if you're very specific about the problem you want to solve and you zero in on that, then AI will be incredibly good for solving the problem. But if you expect like a general purpose Jarvis that you see in Iron Man, you're going to be in for disappointment, at least now, as of this recording. So
I figure in order to create a Jarvis, you're really going to need more of an agentic structure where you have small LLMs working in tandem to be able to give you a
that's
greater
probably the
result.
starting point. Yeah, definitely. It's going to be way more involved.
Is there any tech that you hope is created?
Hmm. I would love to see two pieces of tech. One is something that is the perfect education companion, meaning that where AI excels right now is it's got tremendous patience and pretty much digested the internet, so it knows a lot of things. But then again, the challenge is, as a learner, you don't have domain expertise on a particular topic, and you don't have the advantage of being able to spot where the AI is hallucinating, making up facts, and telling you like references that actually don't exist, or give you a link and there's no sentence in that link anywhere that actually has the
Yeah.
reference it's made. So that's something I want to see fixed, because assuming you can fix about 95% of that, then all of a sudden you have a tutor that's going to adapt dynamically to how you are learning, and that opens up infinite possibilities. Anybody can learn anything and then excel at it, as opposed to sort of saying, okay, this is too hard for me or whatever. So that's one piece of tech, and I feel that we're probably going to get there soon, I hope, fingers crossed. The second piece of tech is actually a way for us to make compute more efficient, because one aspect of AI is that it consumes a lot of electricity. A lot of these data centers and GPU farms, they just consume a lot of electricity and water to cool these GPUs. So I would love to see tech that actually makes these models way more efficient and just as performant, because if we're able to do that, then it's good for the planet as well. So those are the two pieces of tech I can think of.
I agree. And if I ever talk to Sam Altman or any of the other heads, I really do want to ask like where their research is on that level, because it just makes sense to me. Like we started out with these brick cell phones, right? And then they became this tiny things.
Right.
Can we not do the same thing with AI? It just seems like it's a law that's going to happen anyways. I think we should be advancing on the R&D of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, I'll just give you the last 5 minutes to plug anything you like or tell anybody where you are or any information we missed.
Sure. So AI for the rest of us is, as of this recording, going to be released in the US on October 30th, 2025. So I'm very excited to get this book out and get feedback from readers around the world. So please grab a copy and let me know what you think. I'd really appreciate it. If you'd like to ask me questions or DM me or just reach out, I'm available on LinkedIn, same name, and on Substack, where I write a weekly newsletter called Gradient Ascent. And there I try to help people either break into the field of AI, or if you're already in tech and in AI, I help you keep up with everything that's going on. So thank you.
It's a lot. So I'll make sure that everything's down in the description below because I know the information is valuable and my audience will appreciate it.
I
Thank you
really
very
appreciate
much
it.
for coming on. And to my audience out there, stay weird.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.